right now, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Darren, Darren Levy from New Zealand. Hello, good morning. Over to you, Darren, to introduce our next speaker.
Awesome. Thanks, Corinne, and tēnā koutou katoa, everybody. Hi, everyone. I'm Darren, and I'm, as Corinne said, from Auckland, New Zealand, in the land of the long white cloud, which is quite cloudy at the moment, but that's okay. We're inside, and we're going to be enjoying this great conference, which has been fantastic so far. So, speaking of being awesome, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who is definitely awesome. Her name is Chaoli Jones. So, Chaoli is joining us from Gallagher HQ in Hamilton, New Zealand. I thoroughly enjoyed supporting and working with Chaoli through her LSI journey this year. We love working with all of our clients, of course, but I have to say that Chaoli's enthusiasm, her growth mindset, and her commitment to change was super energizing to be around, and you're going to feel that level of energization very shortly. So Chaoli is very much part of the Gallagher family, having worked in various roles in Gallagher for the last 13 years. She became production manager recently, which has been exciting and interesting for her, but also very fast-paced and stressful at times. So as part of her management training, Chaoli went through the LSI process and coaching with Human Synergistics, and was a catalyst for positive change, not only in her work, but also her personal life. So Chaoli will share her leadership journey with you and the hands-on approach that she has taken to grow her skills and her confidence, not only as a manager, but also as a loving wife and mum throughout her personal life. So strap yourselves in for a great conversation with Chaoli. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that introduction, Darren. A very warm welcome to you all. Well done to all the speakers before me, and thank you for sharing your stories. I'm talking to you all today from the Gallagher head office here in New Zealand in Hamilton. And I'd firstly like to take this opportunity to thank Darren for this really cool opportunity to speak with you all about my LSI journey so far. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm really excited. I was quite surprised to be given the chance to speak at the conference today when Darren asked me. I wondered why he might want me to speak. I've only been doing the LSI program now for roughly 7 months, since February this year. It's still early days, but then I thought back to how I was feeling mentally and physically back in Feb when I first met Darren, and it seems like so long ago that I felt the way I did back then that I realized the impact this program has had on me, and I could see why he would think my story was worth sharing. So I'm going to be completely open and take you through my journey so far. So how was I feeling mentally and physically earlier this year, you might be wondering? I was quite stressed. I was having daily headaches. I had low self-belief and difficulty making decisions without support from my manager, which in turn made me feel like I wasn't really a manager because I didn't feel like I was truly doing my job and making decisions for myself and for my department. I had imposter syndrome, and I was about 8 kgs heavier. So yeah, I definitely had a lot going on. And I had seen better days, but I've done a lot of work since then, and that's what I want to share with you all today. So a bit about me and my career so far. I've been working at this amazing company, the Gallagher Group, for almost 14 years now. I started out on the assembly line as a production team member, and over the years I worked my way up and held various support and administration roles. And I enjoyed them all, and I learned a lot. But each of those roles felt like they had a finish line of learning opportunities for me. And I definitely longed for that next big step in my career. I wanted something that pushed me out of my comfort zone and allowed for continuous growth and personal development. And in 2019, an opportunity came up to apply for a production manager role. And it was exactly the opportunity I had hoped for. I definitely have always struggled with low self-belief, and it's at times held me back from opportunities in life. In fact, there had been several production manager roles advertised before this one, but I didn't even apply for them because I ruled myself out of the running. Quite honestly, I didn't think I was good enough, and that really sucks. But when this role came up, I had some encouragement from my peers, some serious encouragement from my family. And I just thought, what's the worst that can happen? I lose the job to someone more qualified, more experienced than me. At the very least, I gained some interview experience, so there's nothing really to lose. So to my surprise, I was successful and I was offered the position. And I remember the day they gave the job to me, I felt such happiness. I was completely elated, but I also had some mixed feelings. I was really, really scared that I might stuff it all up. I had so much respect for the leadership that gave me the opportunity that I didn't want to let them down or disappoint them. Not to mention the team that I was taking over, their reputation for quality within the company was unmatched. And that was quite a daunting thought, that I might take over as their leader and not do the role justice. The manager who led the department before me had done such a good job in the role that I created this internal pressure on myself to fill the big shoes that she left behind. I started the role with about 5 team leaders and roughly under 30 direct team members. And it was my challenge to not only figure out how to find my feet as a first-time manager, but also I had to build working relationships with my new team and build trust, as well as support them to achieve our department targets. So I really had my work cut out for me. I had really been so used to being the support person in a support role that I had a habit of being the answer giver or the answer finder. And on top of that, I'm the type of person that always wants to help others. So what I found was that I was taking problems or work from my team and trying to sort it out myself, instead of supporting them to find the answers themselves, as I hadn't really learned to use my coaching muscles or my people development muscles. And that created a lot of extra work for me. So as you can imagine, my workload quickly piled up. I started to notice a bit of a shift in what I would do at home in my own time. Instead of the normal long walks with my dog that I was used to before I took on the role, I either had no energy to do anything after work, or I brought the laptop home and I would keep working because I wanted to stay up on top of the workload. And this continued for some time. And one particular night, I'll never forget, I was working at home, working away on my laptop, and my 3-year-old at the time, he's almost 5 now, he walked up to me and he slammed my laptop shut on my fingers. It didn't hurt, but it was very dramatic. And he shouted, "No more working, mummy, play with me." And it just made me feel so bad. I felt the biggest mum guilt. That memory still haunts me today. And it was a bit of a wake-up call that I knew I needed to make some changes to the way I worked, but I wasn't really sure how. So sometime later, I got the opportunity to do the LSI program with the rest of the leadership team. And I received my LSI 1 and my LSI 2 results. And I met with Darren for the first time to go over them. And I was apprehensive about what I might see. The whole leadership team was. It's not easy getting feedback from others about yourself, and we all didn't really know what to expect. Darren took me through the circumflex in both reports, and I was really, really encouraged by how my peers had rated me for the constructive blue styles in my LSI 2, which were between the 50th and 75th. I was really happy with that. The green styles were also in the same range, so I knew what I needed to focus on right away. But when I compared how I rated myself versus how my peers rated me, there was a difference in just how dependent I felt I was versus how dependent they saw me to be. And that got me reflecting about why that might be. Why do I see myself as highly dependent? What I realized, and my peers may not have realized this themselves, was that I just wasn't trusting myself enough to make decisions. And I saw myself as highly dependent on my manager because I really don't want to make any decisions that would reflect poorly on him or on the wider department. And that was the reason why I wasn't feeling like a manager and that I was too reliant. And I really wanted to change that. One part of my results that I remember feeling really happy and chuffed about was the summary section. Those who rated me had shown that they generally felt I was effective in my role. I get things done while maintaining a high standard. And that was really cool because I never got much feedback from anyone about how I was performing. So automatically leads to thoughts of, that I'm not doing well at all, even though I hoped I was. It was nice to see that my peers felt that my work relationships were positive and that I work well with others. It just boosted how I felt and it gave me some motivation. When I reviewed the circumplex from my direct reports and how they saw me, I was firstly so happy at how highly they rated me in the blue constructive styles. That really made me think I'm on the right track, and it boosted my self-confidence and self-belief so much. What I noticed was that they saw me as highly conventional, which part of the definition of unconventional in the self-development guide is unquestioned obedience to authority figures and rules, and also a reduced initiative. They also rated power quite high, which in the guide is defined as a tendency to dictate rather than guide the action of others. And that sort of told me a story. It told me that not only did I have a dependency on my manager, but I had also created a dependency on me with my own team. And in turn, that was creating extra work for myself. I wasn't really challenging them to tackle problems on their own with my support. And the way I was doing things was the reason I disliked how I was performing as a manager. And I was creating heaps of extra work and some stress. And that in turn had an effect on my health and well-being. The first sit down I had with Darren, I almost felt emotional because here comes this guy with 3 booklets, 2 of them filled with awesome insights about me and how I am and the way that I work, and also a complete guide full of suggestions of how to improve in my weakest areas. And the only catch was that I had to work on these things myself, and it was completely up to me if I wanted to get those results. I was rearing to get stuck into my self-development after that first catch up with Darren. So I threw myself into the LSI because I was sick of being a manager who didn't feel like a manager, because I was relying so heavily on my own boss to help me make decisions. I was sick of taking my laptop home and putting so much pressure on myself. No one else was pressuring me but me. And I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I always suffered headaches and I just had no energy at the end of the day. So I started by setting 3 goals for myself. The first goal was to coach and grow my team. And the reason I wanted this was because I wanted to empower my team to make decisions on their own without much input from me. And I wanted to stop taking work from them, which I had to do in my own time. They are essentially the frontline leaders in production, and with it being so fast-paced and decisions needing to be made often, I felt it was really important to put a focus on their development and to stop being the answer giver, which I was so accustomed to in previous roles, and move toward being the coach that they needed to help uncover the decision-making abilities that they already had within themselves to run the department independently. I thought if I prioritize this goal, that it would enable my team to react to events in a timely manner, and it would also mean that I would not be taking work home from them, so less work for me. My team would be able to work through their own obstacles in time with a bit of coaching. The thinking style blockers in the red and green styles I had to consciously overcome were being perfectionistic and overcautious. I wanted to consciously maximize the blue styles, the thinking enablers, like being humanistic and encouraging. Some of the ways I've worked towards this goal is I now consciously seek out opportunities to coach. I researched the best coaching questions to ask, and I committed myself to use every opportunity that came my way to coach. At first, it was really difficult because I would default to giving answers. I had to literally put little post-it notes all up in my office, on my wall or on my computer screen. So when one of my leaders would walk into my office with a question or with a problem, I would look at the note and it would just say coach, and it would remind me that I shouldn't just give the answer. And the types of questions I ask are things like, what have you tried so far? Have you seen this problem in the past? What options do you have? Or what are the risks? It was a challenge at first because I would be so busy sometimes and I would just want to give an answer to move things along quickly, but I really had to focus on the reason I was doing this, why I wanted this goal in the first place. I had to think long game. How do I want my leaders to be in the future? And that's what I'm hired to do, essentially, is to develop people. It's been quite tricky, but I can say my leadership team will come to me now with a problem, and they will either tell me the decision that they've already made and we'll discuss it, or they will bring me one solution idea they have, and we talk about that. So it's been really rewarding seeing that result and their growth. Yes, they default to asking for answers, and sometimes that's the necessary thing to do, to teach or tell. But also, behaviours do take time to change, and it's generally just improved quite a lot. Another thing I did to support this, and you have to forgive me, I'm sharing slides here, is I created a delegation card. So I use this to issue out projects to my team or to an individual, and it clarifies the task I want them to work on, including why it needs to be done, what are the specific outcomes that are needed for the task. But as for how they execute the task, that's up to them. It doesn't really matter how they complete it, and that gives them a little bit of freedom in the framework, which also helps in their development. The card was also a good way to ensure that I'm not overloading my team with work. I put the time frame I need it completed by, and also how long I think it'll take to complete. So that shows me how much work is sitting with each person, so I can allocate work based on that. And I can be sure that I'm not going to overwhelm anyone or stress them out. It also has the priority on it, so they can use this to ensure they're working on the right stuff, and they can prioritize their own work using that information. On the back side of the document, I've put some coaching questions so that as they have regular catch-ups with me, I can ask them the coaching questions to help them progress with the next steps in their projects. And I write what they tell me so we can keep a log of their progress, and we can refer to it at each catch-up. It's kind of like harder coaching that's used in lean manufacturing. It's been a really successful tool so far, and it's really helped me to strengthen my coaching abilities and reduce the workload for me of the things that I was taking from my team. The next goal was to work on my dependency with my manager, specifically trying to improve the difficulty I felt in making decisions. I'm very fortunate that he is super supportive and patient, but I really wanted to push myself to stop consulting him regularly on decisions that I'm more than capable of making on my own. Having a little bit more self-belief in my competency to make decisions. The first action I took toward achieving that goal was sitting down with him and Darren and going over my goals and letting him know my goal of becoming less dependent. I asked him to help me out by coaching me instead of giving me the answer if I came to see him. I try to attempt to make the decision myself in the first instance, considering the pros and cons of each option and also the risks. And if the risk of me making that decision is too great, if I make it on my own, then I will consult him. Otherwise, I'm just giving it my best shot on my own. Sometimes it takes me a while to get to the decision that he would come to really quickly, but the part that's improving the most is my confidence in making decisions. Sometimes I do get it wrong, not too often, but I think it's better to make a decision now using the information I have at hand and change that decision later if I need to, than to not make a decision at all. With each decision I make, I'm becoming more empowered and more confident. My last and probably my hardest goal was around my physical and mental health and well-being. Before taking on this role, I worked out often, I was very conscious of my eating, and after accepting the position, I found it hard to continue this as I didn't have much energy left after work. I was mentally exhausted and just drained. I opted for quick meals, which weren't always healthy. And when you're not nourishing your body, your mind is affected. And I wanted to improve my mental state. I wanted to not be so hard on myself and not put pressure on myself to perform. And I really didn't want to overwork myself. I wanted to feel less stressed in difficult situations and less drained from HR issues, which are a big part of my role. So my next goal was to re-establish my fitness routine and taking time to improve my mental well-being. The change suggestions from the self-development guide were really simple. The one that helped me the most was focus on what is important to you, not what you think, not what others Sorry, focus on what is important to you, not what you think you should do or others want you to do. I found that really powerful, and it's really been the driving reminder for me with this goal. And what is important to me is to live a long and healthy life and be there for my son, and to see his kids and be active in their lives. Another suggestion was to make goal setting a habit and learn to set long-term goals. And I used this idea to create a spreadsheet of how much weight I wanted to lose and by when. So it would calculate how many grams per week to lose before I would hit my goal, which breaks that goal down for me and makes it a bit more manageable. And I update it each week, and it just keeps me on track. I've joined the gym, and so far I've been able to lose 8 kgs. And I've started working half-day Fridays just to get back some me time. I've started doing lunchtime walks during work, which not only helped with my fitness, but also with my mental well-being, unplugging from work for a little bit, listening to music while I walk, getting a bit of a reset to come back and finish out my day with a clear head. Part of improving my mental state was also about not putting myself down, and I used the change suggestion from the book about identifying change and changing speech. So I would make sure that I wasn't beating myself up if I got things wrong, and being kinder with my words and with my thoughts when I would fail. Instead, I would try to look for the lesson in every situation, which really helped. I even find myself now, I'll stop co-workers if I hear them speak ill of themselves or of their work, and I try to point out their strengths or encourage them on things that I thought were really good about what they did. This has all led me to where I am today. Today I can say I don't feel I have low self-belief anymore. Sure, the thoughts do pop up from time to time, but I just think I have better coping mechanisms now. I'm a bit more forgiving of myself, and I know I'm doing a good job because I'm trying every day to be better than yesterday. It's all a constant work in progress, and from what I've learned, there's no true finish line. Sometimes I default back to my old ways, which is totally normal because old habits are hard to break and behaviors take time to change. But I've just kept working at the goals I've set for myself, and I try my best to keep at it. Thank you.
Ka pai, Chaoli, well done. That's fantastic, and I have to mention how brave and courageous it is to come online and in front of hundreds of people that you don't know, and share all of that, which is very brave. And there's a lot of comments coming through the Q&A in terms of saying you rock and what a great motivating and inspiring conversation you've had. Just before we do jump into questions, Chaoli, we had a little technical glitch, and people were really interested in your delegation card. So if you don't mind, if you're able to give that a try to share your screen on that. Team, just while Chaoli is doing that, for everyone that's participating, we'll make sure the recording of the conference as well as resources will be made available to you all. So we want to make sure that this inspiration translates into practical application. So don't worry if you're trying to print screen and all this sort of good stuff. We'll make sure resources are available to you. And somebody just mentioning here what a catalyst you are for your young boy. I think that's fantastic. So here's a delegation card that Chaoli was mentioning before.
Yeah, so that's one section of it, and it just has some of the key information that I think is important to share with your team member, because if you're both aligned on the objective, or if you're both aligned on why you're doing the task, and the task can take time to complete, what I found with some of my team is over the time they would forget what they were doing, and they would start to do their own thing, and they would come back to me with a result that wasn't quite what we had discussed initially. So this brings them back to the why. Why are we doing this? Why is it important? What objectives or key results are we looking for? And then they're aligned with me and they can deliver a good result.
Fantastic. No, thanks, Chaoli. That's great. I do have a question here. For new leaders, what advice would you give when their inner voice is maybe becoming a bit too loud and strong, and urging them just to push through? What advice would you give to those new leaders?
Depends how loud the voice is. My inner voice was really loud. So I started to practice mindfulness. I found that when I would hear little things about, regretting decisions I had made, or regretting, actions that I had taken that resulted in something that failed. I just found that, no, you know what, snap out of it. I'm here in this present moment. I'm going to learn from what I did. And as long as I don't do it again, don't make that same mistake twice, then, I'm going to improve next time. So yeah, that really helped.
Fantastic. And sometimes we have to name it to tame it, right? And
That's right.
recognize that the voice is there, and that's normal. And then, as you've done, keep working at it. Those small changes make such a difference. A lot of comments. I think you're going to enjoy reading them, Chaoli, which is really awesome, around the whole of life process that you've taken, the holistic approach to both becoming the best you outside of work to help be the best you or the better you inside work as well. Quite a practical question around, considering lockdowns and all the good work you've done in terms of physical and mental health, how are you doing that with home, having everyone at home and children at home and working from home, but now being able to be back at work? How are you managing that new context?
Well, I was really fortunate that Gallagher was an essential service, so we never skipped a beat. But there was a point in the initial lockdown last year where we were at home for a couple of weeks, and yeah, it was really difficult. What I found was trying to stick to those same routines, having your normal break times, having those, if you went for a lunchtime walk at work, keep doing that at home, being sure that there's time for everyone. So my son got his time with us, my husband got his time with me, and I had that time alone for myself too, so that I was, filling my own cup, but also, I was still getting work done. So just sticking to those same routines, no matter the circumstances.
Yeah, great advice. Whether it be, yes, the lunchtime walk or the morning commute, if you're doing that at home, have your virtual commute and make sure you can get yourself in that good space. That's great advice.
Yeah.
I got time for another question here. Again, lots of great feedback and saying, what advice would you give for others in terms of communicating with their, should we say, their better halves, our other halves, in terms of the changes that you're looking to make? Because it's one thing to share with lots of strangers, but sometimes sharing with our nearest and dearest can be quite hard. Could you talk us through what you did there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to be transparent, because the more transparent you are, then you can bring everyone along on the journey with you, especially your partner. They'll have an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, what changes they're seeing, and what it all means, and they can support you. If you're not transparent, then it can be a little bit difficult for them and for yourself. So, and I think that's the same with your team on the floor. As you're working on changes to develop yourself, the more you let it be known what your goals are, or what you're trying to achieve, or what you're working on, then the more that people can support you with that.
Fantastic, love it. Question here in regards, which I loved, about rather being the advice giver but the question asker. So empowering is important. We want to be empowered, but sometimes that shift from empowerment, from where we were to empowerment, can be quite tough, and others might have a different approach. So how do you deal with it when people just want you to tell them what to do?
I think telling does have its place. It definitely does. And it's just about recognizing when to do that. But also, I've seen colleagues take the approach where they'll tell people, okay, this is a tell situation. I'm here for advice. Tell me what to do. So making that, clarifying that, and, I don't really want you to coach me right now. I actually don't know what to do here. So clarifying that can help. But yeah, telling has its place, and so does coaching. And it's just, I think over time you start to get a feel for it.
Fantastic. Yeah, super important that it becomes a reflex, that we know that it's one thing to have the tool belt, but as my wife will attest, if putting that on doesn't mean I'm a DIY genius, but I need to know the right tool to use for the right job and the right outcome. And I think, as you mentioned in some comments here about takes time, and the more we do it, the more reps that we have, the stronger, as you said, that coaching muscle becomes. And I think you're going to be popping like Schwarzenegger in terms of that coaching muscle with all the work you've been doing. So I'd really like to thank you, Chaoli, for having the bravery and the courage and the willingness to share your story. Looking through the comments there, it's really inspired folks in terms of not only work, but also their home life. So very much appreciated, and well done. You did a top job.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren, and thank you everyone for tuning in today.